What is up everyone, Barricade here and bringing you guys a Gears of War discussion video talking about something that I'm pretty sure all of us noticed while playing the Gears 5 tech test. And what I'm talking about today is the fact that they are finally bringing back announcers for the game. If you notice in Gears 5 we saw that for the COG side we heard a woman speaking, which is most likely Jin. That's the person that just makes sense. But on the Swarm side we hear a man talking. A man we've never heard before, at least as an announcer. And I have an idea who that is. So today what I'm going to talk about is my theory that the man announcer that we're seeing for the Swarm side is in fact Niles Samson, the man that worked at the New Hope facility. I'm going to go more into detail as to why in a moment. So first off though, before I go into that, I want to explain who exactly Niles Samson is. If you guys remember, in Gears of War 2, we went to the New Hope facility and we met an AI that would pretty much talk back to Marcus and Dom as they explored the facility, and had a very intriguing personality is the best way I can describe it. He was really odd and very fixated on his children, as he called them. And as you go through the facility, you later find out that this facility is in fact housing these creatures known as sires, and that's who he refers to as his children. So these children, I made another video talking about this in more depth and detail. I'll go ahead and put a link to it at the very end of this video. It'll be one of the videos you can click on. But essentially I made a video talking about the New Hope facility and the Locust origins, and I made a huge video talking about that part in great detail, so feel free to check that out as well if you guys haven't already. But just a quick little little explanation here on this video. Long story short, during the Pendulum Wars and during the times of them mining emulsion, they noticed that people were getting very sick and mutated, and very strange things were happening to a lot of people. So to help capitalize off emulsion and not really show that it had bad side effects, the COG created this new facility called the New Hope facility, where they would take these sick individuals and then try to cure them. But Niles found this sickness as something interesting and almost like an evolutionary step for the human being, and he would experiment on them, and eventually later on they evolved into the sires. They got really mutated, and the story pretty much ended with the New Hope facility stating that it was closed by the chairman at the time. His name was Chairman Monroe. After he found out what Niles was doing and all these crazy people getting mutated and these bad experiments, the chairman essentially shut down the entire facility and wanted it to all stop. But Niles, he didn't want to stop. He loved his children. He thought that they were the next evolutionary step, and he took them and he ran away basically and took them to Mount Kadar. And once he got there, that's where his story basically ends. We don't know what happened to him after that point. And then later in the comics, in the Rise of Rom comics, it was stated that the sires went into Mount Kadar, and the Hollow was essentially used as an incubator that helped evolve them into the very first Locust. So if you didn't know this yet, the Locusts are essentially mutated people that got really badly mutated by emulsion, experimented on by Niles and everything, and then later incubated by the Hollow, and then eventually evolved into Locusts. So I have more of a video on detail on that explains it a little more in depth. Definitely check that video out. I'll put a link in the description and also at the end of this video. But that's just the first thing I wanted to establish real quick with this video, is that is Niles Samson. That's who he is. He was someone that was working at that facility. He saw that these sires were something amazing to him. He had this weird twisted mind, and he wanted to keep them. And even when the facility was shut down, he didn't want to give up. And we never heard from him after that. So the one thing I really wanted to point out in this video, the thing that's really interesting, is during multiplayer while playing the tech test, I noticed that every time I would play as a Swarm, he would say various things that was really interesting, and I'm more than sure that this announcer is Niles Samson. It just makes sense. He's the only person that's ever referred to him as his children, that he created them, and that they're something that is from him. And that's pretty much what is stated in these announcements here. The one thing that I noticed a lot while playing the game is that with Niles, he would get really mad when you would lose, obviously, and his dialogues were really interesting, when you would lose. The ones where you win were pretty cool. They're not like nothing bad, of course. They're really interesting as well, but he would say really in-depth stuff when you would lose. So for example, on this particular clip right here, we can hear him say,
I did not create you to lose. I did not sacrifice my own corporeal life to fail.
And that right there is extremely interesting. He says, and I quote, I did not create you to lose. I did not sacrifice my own corporeal life to fail. The reason why that's extremely interesting is because of that last part of that statement. I did not sacrifice my own corporeal life to fail. Corporeal, what that basically means, if you're not sure what that means, that's basically stating that he sacrificed his normal life, his body, to not fail. So in a way, it's almost like him saying that he's still alive in some weird form, shape or form. He doesn't have a body anymore. His normal human life is gone, but yet he's still there and he's still talking to them, still telling them what to do. And it's really, really interesting, because the one thing I really wanted to point out is Niles is still alive. That's just all I'm going to say right now. Niles is still alive in some weird shape or form. Whether he's just a voice in their head, some type of spirit, who knows? We don't know quite yet, but he is alive. The thing that I've noticed that's always been very concrete when it comes to Gears throughout the series, you know, since Gears 1, 2, 3, Judgment, 4, and now 5, is every time that the game had an announcer, it was always a character that was still alive, at least at the beginning of that game. So for example, in Gears 2 we had Prescott and Mira, and in Gears 3 the same, but then they both eventually died in that game. But every time we had an announcer, at the very beginning of the story, at the very least, that character was alive. There never was a game where the announcer was already dead. So that right there kind of is a little bit of a hint there, stating that Niles is still alive, because they wouldn't use an announcer for a character that's dead. And once again, regardless if he's a spirit or some type of weird entity that's in their mind, he's still technically alive in some weird shape or form, especially stating that he sacrificed his corporeal life for them. And then the one thing I really wanted to point out as well that kind of gives me a big hint that it's definitely Niles is this clip right here after you win.
Today you have truly become my children. Tear this world from human hands.
He states that today you've truly become my children. So that kind of right there also states, you know, he is probably in their mind, like manipulating them, controlling them, and basically kind of encouraging them to prove themselves to him. And I think that's really interesting is that throughout the entirety of the series, when these characters were the Locusts and not the Swarm, is the fact that they never once mentioned him, and they never worshipped him or never did anything for him whatsoever. In the comics, it was pretty much established that the Locusts were down there for years and years and years in the Hollow, and they worshipped the Holy Trinity, which was these three insects that essentially created the Hollow, these big giant bugs, and one of them was the Riftworm. So they were morally fixated on stuff like that rather than someone that created them, a human being. They hate humans, so it felt kind of weird that a human essentially created the Locust, the Swarm, but they never even knew, I guess, or never even went about it, you know? They never mentioned him whatsoever. But now, with the Swarm, you have the Swarm watching and protecting the New Hope facility, the area that this man originated from. So that's a complete 180 than with the other characters. The only thing that's kind of a little bit of a hint that maybe the Locusts did know this is in Gears of War 2 when Marcus and Dom went to the New Hope facility, they randomly showed up, the Locusts randomly showed up and tried to kill them. So maybe they just went there because they went after Marcus and Dom, they just knew they were there. They knew that Delta Squad was there and they're trying to kill them. Or maybe the Locusts actually knew this origin and they went there to try to prevent them from finding anything out. So who knows? It's really interesting. But I know for at the very least the Swarm definitely knows about Niles Samson and most likely has this secret, this entity in their mind that's telling them what to do, essentially. Whoever Niles was, whatever changed his mind so badly that he hated humans, even though he was one, to the extent that he tried to spell doom for the human race, that is extremely interesting, and I want to know his story. Why did he get so twisted? What was wrong with this man that led to him creating monsters that almost wiped out everybody? I just really want to know. You know, I hope they make a comic. I hope they make a novel. I hope they do something. Even just a short cutscene in this game would be amazing enough to see Niles exactly how he actually looks like, because all we ever saw was a blurry image through a screen. And now there's a chance that we might actually get to see what this character looks like and know his story. But yeah, guys, I just wanted to make this video basically explaining that the announcer has to be Niles Samson. It's the only thing that makes sense. He's the only one that's ever referred to them as his children. He's stating that he created the Locust, and now he sacrificed his corporeal life to them and has some type of crazy connection to the Locust and the Swarm. And we'll hopefully find out more information about this later on when it comes to the game. But yeah, guys, if you guys like this video, please definitely hit that like button and subscribe, and tell me what you guys think. Do you think my theory is correct? Do you think the announcer is Niles Samson? Are you interested to see his origin story? If hopefully they'll put it in this game, or at least make a comic or something later on. But yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And if you like this video, also please definitely hit the notification bell, so anytime I make a video, you guys can be notified right away. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and take it easy. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see my most recent Gears of War video, hit that link on the left. If you want to see any of my other content, hit that link on the right. Thanks for watching, guys.